Hi, I'm Don Radkowski with Protection Plus Tactics. Today, I'm at Rockland Armory in Rockland, California with my friend Terry, who owns the gun store. He's been gracious enough to let us use his gun store today to do some filming to help out first-time buyers or anybody. Going to educate you a little bit about some firearms today. We're going to talk about some things to look for. We're going to talk about what you should do when you go in and look for a gun, what would work for you, maybe some of the things based on hand size and a few other factors. We're going to talk about all that today. It's going to be a good day. And once again, I want to thank Terry for letting us use his store, letting us use some of the guns that we can talk about them and show you guys some of the differences in these models. All right, I hope we're all ready to go because I am. A lot of you have been in gun stores. Sometimes it's overwhelming. Sometimes we don't know what gun is really right for us. We read a lot of stuff on the internet, but we don't actually get to shoot it. So we're not real sure. So today we're going to take a look at some of the things you should look for when you're buying a gun. This is some of the things that I like to share. Before I got going, before I started this company about almost 6 years ago. Before that, I worked in gun stores for a while. I really wanted to learn about people and what they stepped up to the counter. When they stepped up, what did they know? I wanted to know this. And I realized as a Marine, I took a lot of things for granted. In a lot of cases, people really did not have knowledge. They were coming to learn. And back when I started in the gun stores, it was a little more difficult to get some of the knowledge. But I started really sharing knowledge with people, and that's one of the ways that I got a good rapport out in the industry, and people began to understand that I knew a lot about guns and I could help them pick the right gun for themselves. So I'm going to share some of that knowledge with you today, some of the things I learned working with customers, and hopefully help educate you a little bit about what might be the right gun for you, and maybe looking at some things differently now after watching this video. All right, so we're going to get going now, and I'm going to go ahead and bring my friend Mark in here to help me out, and he's going to go ahead and take a look at some of the things that we've got going here, and I'm going to kind of treat Mark like a customer that wants to look at some things that are going to, help him pick the right gun. So when we talk about firearms, first thing I like to talk about is this. A lot of people get the wrong advice when they are told, hey, I want to buy a gun, and their friends or relatives or somebody will say to them, hey, go into the gun store, put them in your hand, and whichever one feels right to you, that's the one that's meant for you. Now, that's advice, but I don't think that's necessarily good advice, because a lot of people who haven't fired a gun before, they don't understand recoil, they don't understand concussion, the recoil effect, what it does to your hand, things like that. So I want to explain some of that to help you make a better choice, because they don't go bang in the gun store. So a lot of times when you buy that gun that felt real good in your hand, maybe it's a nice little airweight gun, the first time you go shoot it, boom, because there's no weight behind the gun, it's an airweight, it's very light, the concussion is transferred to your hand, so it becomes very uncomfortable to shoot, which means you won't train. If you buy a gun that's uncomfortable to shoot, you won't train with it. So I want to help people kind of avoid some of those mistakes. So when we talk about what's the right gun, some of the things we look at, and especially when I look at with the customers, I look at their hand size. Hand size has a lot to do with it. Some guns may be, too small for the size of hand that they've got. It'll be very difficult to manipulate. I also like to share with people this. The smaller the gun, the steeper the learning curve. The smaller the gun, the steeper the learning curve. And the reason why is because it's harder to manipulate the weapon when it's small. Everything's compact, sometimes springs are stiffer. It becomes more difficult to manipulate the weapon. Manipulation is a huge part of using a firearm. So when we talk about that, if you can't manipulate it very well, it slows down the learning curve. So I usually advise people, if it's your first gun, get like a mid-size or maybe even a full-size gun depending on the size of your hand, because it's going to eat more recoil because it has more weight. It's going to allow you to grip more surface, which means you can control it better. A lot of people really develop comfort through control. Once they control the gun, their comfort level starts to rise. So having a slightly bigger frame will also help you manage it better by gaining more real estate, gripping better. So I always tell people, a smaller gun, if you're starting to learn on a small gun, it'll steepen that learning curve. Get a bigger one, you'll learn faster. Now, once you learn with that bigger gun, you can transfer that knowledge to the smaller gun real easy. But it's easier to learn on a larger size gun, maybe a mid-size frame or even a large size frame, depending on the size of your hand. So, next thing I'm going to talk about here, I'm going to talk about some of the differences in guns. Some of the differences. So, in the case of some of these firearms right here, I want to show you some of the different, these are more popular models, okay? More popular models, all right? So we're going to start off with a slide action semi-automatic, and I'm going to show you some of the different ones that you can get. First, we're going to look at the Glock. This is what we call a striker fire weapon, okay? Now, when it comes to the Glock, one of the things that I really like about the Glock is that there's no external manipulation, really. I mean, there's nothing sticking out here that your hands can get caught up on, like decockers and things like that. So when I talk about a Glock, I really like the fact that there's not a lot of external controls that you can get hung up on. So it's also a workhorse. It's a workhorse gun. This is a striker fire, which means no hammer. It's an internal plunger that's spring activated. That's what releases the fire pin and strikes the cartridge. This gun, a Glock, that's why it's chosen by a lot of law enforcement and first responders, is because this is a workhorse. It works. It's a great priced gun, somewhere between $500 and $600 typically. This one here is a Glock 22 40 caliber. It's a full-size Glock frame. I like it. It fits the hand well. The one other thing I like about the Glock, it's got this safe action trigger here, which makes it, a little depression right here, so that way it'll get the trigger to activate. It's a little thing that sticks up. Your finger has to be on the trigger for the gun to go off. Pretty nice. There it is right there. It's also got a very crisp trigger and clean break, and I like that. And when you reset, it's got a nice positive force resetting back against the finger, which allows you to engage the sear. You can feel the sear click. So that's another reason why law enforcement really likes this gun. It's just tried and true. Another good thing about Glocks, they're real easy to take apart, real easy to clean, real easy to own. It's a very easy gun to own. And so a lot of times I'll recommend Glocks because they're that simple. Another nice thing about Glocks and some of the other slide action semi-automatic models is you can also do barrel swapping, which means that you can swap the barrel out, as you see I did right here. This is a 40 caliber barrel. Now I'm going to replace it with a 40-9 conversion, which now allows the gun to shoot 9mm. In the case of this Glock, you can actually shoot 3 calibers out of it. A lot of people don't know that. You can shoot 9mm, you can shoot 40 caliber and 357 SIG, which is a neck down version of the 40. Simply by replacing the barrel and magazine. Real simple to do. I kind of refer to this as my doomsday gun, because this gun will allow you to shoot multiple calibers in case of a doomsday scenario and you're out there trying to find ammunition and shoot whatever you find. So you can, with the model 22 40 caliber, you can barrel swap. You cannot do that with the model 17 9mm. All right, you can't go up. You can go from 40 down to 9, but you can't go from 9 up to 40. So it's something to think about when you're buying the gun, because you can always barrel swap, shoot 9 when you train, and then for defense, put the 40 caliber in there. And it's as simple as this. I just switched that. I put this back in. I go ahead and now I'm shooting 9mm that fast. I go from shooting 40 to 9mm that fast. And once again, like I said, it's super easy to take apart. And I'm gonna put the 40 caliber barrel back in there. And this can be done with several models of slide action semi-automatic pistols. Like I said though, if you want a barrel swap, make sure you buy a 40 caliber so you can drop down to a 357 SIG or 9mm. All right, that's the Glock. Like I said, tried and true polymer frame. Very good gun. I'm gonna place this in Mark's hand, and you can see he's got a large hand, but the gun fits really well. I like to look at some things when I'm putting a gun in the customer's hand. One of the things is palm travel. I want to get across the palm, all the way across the palm. All right, if the gun stops short right about here, which in the case of some compact models and revolvers, what you're going to see is it sits right in the carpal tunnel, area, right here. And that means when you shoot, it beats up the carpal tunnel area and fatigues your hand faster. It's not that it hurts, but your hand will start getting tremors, and they're not really like this. I'm exaggerating it, but it does affect your shots. The other thing is, it starts to beat up your hand. You repeatedly go train and use a gun like that that's gonna beat up that nerve bundle. Eventually you're gonna have some problems. So I always tell people, make sure you get good palm travel. It also allows you to get a good grip on the gun. So in the case of the Glock, what we can see is got a good grip on there. He's getting a good chunk of real estate. We've opened this area up, which allows the other portion of the grip to sit in, claim more real estate. Just a good gun, good sized gun, even though this is a larger man. He's, you know, kind of a large frame man, big hands compared to mine. So as you can see, fits his hand and fits my hand very well, even though we have an extreme difference in the size of our hands. Hold your hand up. He's got big old hands, I got small ones. So this is a good gun. That's why I say get to a mid-size or full-size frame. It helps you train a little bit easier. We're gonna move over now. This is also, Glock is Austrian made, so this is an Austrian made weapon, designed and made. Now this one is a CZ75D. It's a good compact gun. They also make the full-size versions. I'm a big fan of CZ. I love the way they shoot, they perform. CZ has one of the only models that ever passed the NATO pistol. And so, you know, it's just, they're rock solid. They've gone through all kinds of tests. This is probably the second most widely used gun in the world. Number one being the Glock. Number two would be the CZ. When we talk about the CZs, there's some things that make it unique. And one of the things I really like about it, okay? So once again, when we talk about does it fit the handgun? Yes, it does. It gives me good palm travel, as you can see, just like that. Allows me to establish good grip, drive the weapon. It's got good sight radius. It's got night sights out of the factory. I really like the way CZ does things. CZ also has some other controls when we talk about, this is the slide catch right here. It's also got a decock right here, which is real nice. Some models in California replace the decock with the safety, but they're good guns. I really like them. They feel good in your hand. It's got a nice contoured grip that, you know, feels like you're gripping a baseball. Nice, fits in there real good. The other thing I like about CZs is the way they shoot. They shoot very straight, very well. And one of the things that makes CZ, as we see it's all clear, kind of unique is that in most cases, when we talk about pistols, and I'll show you a few right here real quick, you'll see that the slide wraps around the frame. Right here you can see how it hooks around the frame, okay? This right here is an HK, I'll show you that. Also, we can look at the Glock, and we can see, once again, slide wrapping around the frame. Beretta Storm, once again, we see frame wrapping around the slide. You can see right here. However, with the CZ, what makes this sort of unique is the frame wraps around the slide. The frame wraps around the slide. And that allows, with the lower slide profile, as you can see, the Glock has a much thicker slide, a little bit heavier. The HK, big difference in the slide height. Same with the Storm. Okay. It's also got a very low slide profile. That low slide profile allows for ease of recoil because we don't have as much mass moving back towards us, so it keeps the muzzle a little level. It's great for when you're shooting from the hip or this area right here, driving the weapon with one hand. It allows for less recoil pushing back at you. So smooth shooting guns, they work real well. I also want to show you a difference in the trigger. This is what we call kind of a fish hook trigger. It's got more of an exaggerated hook in it, like that. And what that is a different from, say, the Glock, which has this. It's a more straighter trigger. So when we look at the two together, you're gonna see one's really hooked and one's straight. A little more straighter. And you'll find models all the way down to a straight trigger. Now, when we talk about the trigger curve, that can affect shooters. If they're used to a straight trigger, it will affect them. In most cases, the hook works perfect for me because with a reduced or relaxed grip, I feel like I'm going, you know, when I'm coming straight back, the hook actually hits in the right spot when you come straight back. However, if you have poor trigger discipline and you snatch the trigger or jerk the trigger, in that case, what's going to happen is that hook will grab and dip the barrel. But if you apply smooth, steady application of pressure, you're going to drill with that gun. It's a great gun for shooting very accurately. So the CZs, once again, made in Czechoslovakia, very renowned gun, used around the world. It's a great gun, great gun. I highly recommend them. We're going to move on a little bit. We're going to talk about another German model, Heckler Koch, or HK. This one right here is the USP 45 caliber compact. It's a good gun. I really like, once again, when we talk about ease of manipulation, the HKs are very good. They also have a polymer frame. In most cases, you're going to get a safe and a fire. This weapon is actually used a lot by guys in executive protection, bodyguard type work, things like that. It's a very good gun. The offset on the barrel and the slide allows for one-handed manipulation, press checks, things like that. It's a real nice gun when we talk about smooth shooting. It's got a great trigger in there, allows you to be real accurate with the shots. In most cases, I think all HKs come stock with night sights. The safety also acts as a decock because these are slide action semi-automatic, and what this is single double action, okay? So it also allows for good palm travel, good placement, good grip. Once again, I'll let him hold on to this gun. It's got a nice big grip, but once again, it fits his hand pretty nicely, even though he's got a large hand. This right here, once again, like I said, a lot of executive protection, bodyguard type people use this gun for their profession. It's a great gun. They run real smooth, very reliable, and very accurate. It's got one of the best polymer triggers when we talk about a real short stroke and a nice, reset. The HK has one of the nicer triggers. I do like HK. Heckler Koch is a great manufacturer. Once again, German engineering. And as we move along, I want to show you that the grip here has some also sandpaper serration in there that allows for grip, especially when we talk about, sweaty palms, things like that. They really thought about a lot when they designed this gun. It's got a tack rail built into it like the Glock does. The CZ does have a model with the tack rail. This model doesn't, but they do make a model with the tack rail. Like I said, slide action semi-automatic pistols, very similar. Little things that are going to make them different. Little things that are going to make them different. In most cases, it's going to be the trigger and the way it feels in your hand. In some cases, it's actually going to be the way it's manufactured that will make it easier to shoot. And that brings us to the Storm here, the Beretta Storm. I really like this gun in 40 caliber. It's a nice large size gun, all clear. Fits the hand real well, okay? A lot of people like shooting that gun. It became popular. One of the things that I do like about this, why I say I like it in 40, is because the 40 is a very fast-moving round. And when, equal and opposite energy, you got a lot of energy coming back at you when you fire a 40. So it's a difficult round to tame. So I don't shoot 40s that often. I do like shooting 40 out of the Beretta, though. And one of the reasons why is because the barrel actually rotates. As you actuate the slide action, you'll see the barrel rotating slightly. Okay, so what that does is that actually helps eat up recoil out of that 40 caliber round that's fast moving. So the barrel goes like this a little bit, helping you eat up some of that recoil. This is a real nice shooter in a 40 caliber. I really like the gun. Once again, it's a polymer frame gun made by Beretta. So now we're into Italian. All right, and the other thing that I really like about the Storm, besides the rotating barrel, is it's got a nice trigger. It's not the greatest trigger, but it's got a nice smooth break on it. It's got a nice reset. When we talk about the reset, it's not the shortest reset in the world, but it's smooth. It's not like gliding over a box of rocks, so it's got a nice trigger to it. I do like that. One of the downsides to this weapon is the safety. Not a lot of pistols have safeties. Some do, some don't. Most don't. When we talk about revolvers, no revolvers have safeties. When we talk about Glocks, don't have safeties. A lot of your models do not have safeties. They may have decocks or other things like that, but not an actual safety. The guns that we're looking at right here, half of them, 2 of these have a safety. These 2 don't, and these 2 don't. So when we talk about the revolvers. But one of the things that's the safety is located right here on the top of the slide. And so what happens is, a lot of times, remember, if you see red, that means dead, that means you can shoot. So the safety would be off, and then here the safety would be on. However, if you're in a situation fighting for your life, defending yourself, and you have to do a mag change and you want to do it real fast, you get that mag in there and you go to rack it. Well, a lot of times when you rack it, you're also going to put the safety on at the same time. So that happens a lot with this gun because of where it's located. When you rack it, sometimes the safety will go on and then you'll have to re-go like that and take the safety off. So that's the only downside to this gun when I see it, thinking about it from a protection or combat situation. That would be the only thing. Same thing happens with the Beretta M9. The M9, which is one used in the military, was used in the military. Same thing, safety's located on top, you'd rack it, you'd engage the safety whenever you'd rack the weapon. And sometimes when you're in the middle of something, maybe fighting, you need to get those rounds coming back downrange as fast as possible. So that's a little bit of what I would call a little bit of a design flaw. Most people don't notice it because they go to the range and they only shoot in a very controlled environment, in a bowling alley situation with their lane, and it makes it a little difficult to understand how these things affect you when you're trying to move fast and actually can't feel your hands too well because of adrenaline flowing, and all of a sudden your gun starts hiccuping and malfunctioning. It's not a good thing to happen. All right, we're going to talk about another firearm right now. I want to talk about the XD, the Croatian Sensation. It's a gun that's made in Croatia. It's by Springfield Armory. The XD, it's a good gun. It's a great gun. This is the XD right here. This particular model is the XD45. Once again, polymer frame. You know, you can see a few different things here, very similar to some of the other guns we looked at. When we talk about the polymer frame, it's very similar to the Glock. Look at the slide profile, very similar to some of the other handguns. The XD is a very popular gun. What made this gun so popular is this. What they did was, they said, took the advice. At the beginning of the video, I told you, everybody gets the advice of, hey, when you go look for a gun, find the one that fits you the best, okay? That's the one that you should get. In the case of XD, the XD designed by Springfield Armory, what they did was they went and designed it ergonomically appealing so that it felt real good in your hand. You could get a nice grip on it. And by doing that, what they did was they kicked the angle a little bit on the handle here. They went ahead and changed the angle of that. Well, what it did was lift the gun a little bit in the front. So to compensate, they gave it a real high slide profile. A real high slide profile. The reason for that is to kind of compensate for the kick forward in the handle, which made it very ergonomically appealing. However, something I got to point out about this gun, it shoots off a different sight plane than any other gun. So the XD, the Croatian Sensation made by Springfield, actually sits at a different sight plane than any other handgun made. All the rest sit at a certain height, what we call sight plane. This one's a little bit higher. So they actually tell you they got to aim a little bit differently with this gun. If you read the manual, it's going to tell you you're going to aim a little different with this gun. So if you own it and you haven't read the manual yet and you're wondering why you're shooting low, I want you to go ahead and read this and it might correct some things. All right? Read your manual and you might correct a few of your shooting habits with this gun. It's one of the reasons another reason why it's so popular is because it also had both right and left hand controls, once again making it more ergonomically appealing. It also has a backstrap safety, much like the 1911. Backstrap safety right there. So this has to be depressed for the gun to go off. All right. The backstrap safety on the XD, it's another added safety feature. It's a good gun. It's a rock solid gun. These things will perform. They just go, 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 go. I've got friends that have just run so many rounds through these things. They really like them. They just keep performing. That's the XD, the Croatian Sensation. Next, we're going to talk about the Beretta M9 or the 93FS, 94FS, depending on which model you get. But when we talk about this gun, understand, once again, this is the top safety. As we talked about on the Beretta Storm, when you rack it, you actually put the safety on so it won't shoot. So kind of a little bit of a design flaw, in my opinion. So I like to look at that. You know, the other thing, this was widely used in the military. I used it in the Marine Corps. The other thing that was kind of difficult was the exposed barrel for me because we're fighting in the desert. And when we're fighting in the desert with this exposed barrel, lots of dirt and stuff would get in there. In an environment like home, here in an urban, situation, it's a great gun. They shoot real straight. I qualified with this in the Marine Corps, qualified expert. There wasn't a problem with the way it shot, nothing like that. It was just a couple things that I thought about in combat and said, well, if I'm racking the gun the way they taught me to rack it, I'm grabbing a hot barrel. I'm also going to go ahead and engage the safety, which I don't want, right? Because when I went in the Marine Corps in 1983, I was using a 1911. Then they switched to the Beretta, and then I personally switched to a Glock 21 45 caliber. But it's a good gun, rock solid. It's got good magazine capacity. It's a gun that's used by a lot of law enforcement, and that was widely used in the military for a long time. It's only recently been replaced. So not a bad gun. Once again, this is an Italian make. And getting back to the Croatian sensation, it is Springfield Armory. It's an American company, but it's made in Croatia. And now we're going to look at the 1911. This is a tried and true. This was the first gun I was shooting in the Marine Corps. Our, once again, GI model, basically low profile sights, just like this. Basically what you're looking at. Very similar gun to this one right here. This is a very basic model on 1911. It's a great gun. You can get the 1911 anywhere from about $700 on up to about $4,000 or $5,000 if you go Nighthawk or a few of the others like that. It's a good gun. One of the things that's really popular about this, all clear, is the short stroke on the trigger. People love 1911s because it's a very short stroke on the trigger to make the gun go off. Shorter stroke on the trigger means less room for error, which means most people shoot more accurately with these. So it's something to think about if you're trying to go target shooting and all that. I always recommend, if you're just going to be a target shooter, get a nice 1911. You're going to love the trigger. You're going to love the way the gun feels. It's got good balance, good weight. It's just a good performer. This thing has also been used in every war we have been in since its inception in 1911. So from World War I on. So it's a tried and true model. It's been around over 100 years, and it works. So this is a good gun when we talk about some of the differences in the models. It's also a larger frame gun, so you can get a real good grip on the real estate. Magazine capacity, that's a little bit of an issue with this because we are in most cases shooting 45, and you're going to get anywhere from 6 to 10 rounds in most cases. So, and that's with an extended mag. So if round count is your issue, you want a lot of rounds when you carry, maybe the 1911 is not the gun, but it's a good solid performer. Now we're gonna look at a couple revolvers. I do like to take a look at some of the different revolvers that we've got here. I might break out a few more guns, maybe XD or something like that. But right now we're gonna take a look at some revolvers. A lot of people like to buy revolvers. It's a good weapon of choice. A lot of people like to buy them. So what we're going to do here is we're going to go ahead and take a look at a couple popular ones. I like the Smith & Wessons. They make good revolvers. I carry a Model 66 Combat Magnum. Really like that gun. But I'm going to show you some of the popular models that people like to buy. Here's an Airweight. All right, this is made by Smith & Wesson. It's super light alloy. And this is kind of what I was talking about before, that, hey, if you go to train with this gun, and I've shot this gun a lot, you will experience concussion slapping your hand, and it's not comfortable. It's definitely not comfortable. It's like, bam, somebody smacking your hand, you're just like, ooh, ooh, each round. You shoot maybe 10 rounds, you're done, because it's just not fun. So a lot of people will pick this gun, and especially women will choose this gun a lot because it is very light in their hand, it's comfortable in their hand, and they can work the action. It's not too stiff. So they're like, oh, I like this gun, very comfortable. Like I said, the problem is once you fire rounds through it, then bam, bam, you start to feel the concussion. It's not a bad thing, but it's something you need to be aware of. And if you want to go to the range and train and learn how to use a weapon proficiently, you need to, and you need to be able to shoot a decent amount of rounds through there when you do train. So it's something I like to remind people. So maybe this would be a good ideal carry one. Maybe not something you would want to train with, but I would definitely, if I got one of these, I would get a larger, maybe a GP 100 by Ruger or something like that to train with, so I could shoot a lot of rounds, get used to using the gutter sights as we refer to them, and get used to shooting a revolver. And then carry this one, knowing that when you do shoot, the adrenaline will be flowing. You probably won't feel the slap and the concussion in your hand. You'll fight right through that. But when you're just training in a controlled environment, you do start to feel that stuff. Also, when we talk about revolvers, most revolvers have a stiffer trigger pull. And this one is stiffer than these, but yet light for a revolver. I'm gonna put this in his hand so we can get a look at that. And you can start to see right now, you know, he's got, hey, it's a big hand carrying a little gun. And you start to really see that when you put small revolvers in. Now, he's a large man. He'll be able to handle that recoil real well. But once again, like I said, the palm travel's not good. So he's basically not going to really shoot this gun a whole lot at the range, you know, but maybe it's a good concealed carry gun for him. Super lightweight. Like I said, I like Smith & Wessons. One thing I want to point out, if you do carry a revolver, I want to point this out to you, okay? You can tell which way a cylinder rotates simply by looking at it from the outside. This is something I want to point out. If you look at this right here, it's pointing like an arrow in a downward direction like this. And if I hold the gun like this, you're going to see that this one actually rotates counterclockwise. This is made by Smith & Wesson. Now I'm going to show you another Smith & Wesson right here. This is the Smith & Wesson M&P model. It's a 38. Okay, now if you look at this one, it goes the opposite direction. So this one actually goes clockwise. It's very good to know if you're indexing bullets, if you're in a gun, you know, defending yourself, and all of a sudden you shoot 5 rounds, you got to get another one in there real quick. Well, if this is a 5-round cylinder, I know that with this going clockwise, I need to index the bullet at 10 o'clock and make sure that that's the cylinder right there, so that when the trigger pulls, it's going to go ahead and move it into the 12 o'clock position. Okay, now with this one, because it's going counterclockwise, I've now got to get the bullet in 2 o'clock. So these are good things to know if you are using a revolver for defense, because if you get down to 1 bullet and you've got to throw it in there and make it go bang real quick without going click, 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 bang, you want bang. You got to know in a counterclockwise rotation, it has to go into the 2 o'clock position. So just like that, we'd index the bullet there, boom, and then it would pull the next cylinder in and make the gun go fire. So when we talk about revolvers, understand a few of what you have. Like I said, this is Smith & Wesson, 2 Smith & Wessons, and the cylinders go opposite directions. So don't take for granted because it's a Smith & Wesson, it goes clockwise or counterclockwise. They're all different, depends on the models. It's like a clockwork in there. So understand that. I do like this model right here. This is the Crimson Trace model. It comes with a laser, which is good for defense at night. In a lot of cases, when you train, I don't usually advise people training with lasers too much because you'll kind of start looking for the dot. You won't fire the round until you see the dot. So I want people getting rounds down range as quick as possible, and sometimes that's before we ever see a dot. Now, once the gun starts going and you pick that dot up, good for you. Now you can walk it in the target if you're off. But good for home defense, helps out. Nobody likes it when they see a laser on them, so it's also a good threat deterrent. Real good model. Like I said, most of these guns you're going to get into somewhere between the $500 and $600 range. Once we get into the HKs, we're getting a little bit more expensive. This gun is $1150 right here, and the CZs come in somewhere between $600 and $700. So once again, price can be also something that you want to take into consideration when you're buying a gun. Put this one in your hand, Mark. See how that feels. How's that feel?
Pretty good. It just
feels pretty good. Yeah. How's the action on the trigger? Stiff?
Yeah,
a little stiff. Now, the reason revolvers and other guns are stiff, because we call them an intent gun. So guns you would carry, smaller guns that you can carry on your body, is an intent weapon, and so it's going to have a stiffer trigger pull. The reason for that stiffer trigger pull is because you don't want a mistake when you pull it out, like, oops, I didn't mean to shoot him. No, you want a nice, definite, I meant to shoot him. So it's an intent gun. When you pull that trigger, you are intent on doing it. That's the difference in why the trigger pulls are either longer, like in the case of a car, CW9, or some of the car models, or whether they're real stiff, like in the case of a lot of revolvers, especially the double action, because you've got to go from all the way, pull all the way through. So when we talk about the double action, that's the hammer. What that means is, with the trigger, a double action gun, with the trigger, I can make the hammer do 2 moves. I can make it go down and back up simply by pulling the trigger. Okay? Down and up. Now, with a single action gun, like an old cowboy gun, you actually have to cock it, that's single action, and then pull the trigger. So each time you would have to cock it. That's a cowboy gun or your old cylinder guns. In the case of a semi-automatic like this, single double action, I can cock it and shoot, or shoot with the hammer forward, which means longer, stiffer draw. And that's something why a lot of people who do carry weapons, firearms with the double action, they carry hammer forward, so it is a longer, stiffer draw when you're ready to shoot. Some cases then, when after the first shot, everything is cocked and it's a real short throw on the trigger. Now, the other thing I want to talk about is that positive reset on the trigger. Some of the things when I look at different models, the Glock, like I said, has a real good, nice positive reset on the trigger. So you get a real distinct click when it goes bang, right? And then as it cycles, we're going to see a real short travel in the sear. That's what I like. That far, just barely 1/8 of an inch. And then you can shoot again. So Glocks have a real good sear, which allows, if you start to train and do sear riding, you are going to experience, a shorter sear makes the rounds come out a whole lot faster. You can literally start increasing the cyclic rate, or getting your gun cycling a whole lot faster with the shorter sear. So I do like that. SIGs have notoriously had, a long reset, and they finally fixed that with the SRT trigger. The models with the SRT trigger are nice, German engineered gun, 6 hour. It's got a real short reset on that, which allows the rounds to come out faster. That was one of the knocks on SIGs once people started understanding how to ride the sear and get rounds down range faster. So SIG actually fixed that problem. However, SIG is one of the models that has a lot of external manipulation with the slide decock that's on one side, also the slide catch, then you've got the hammer decock, all that stuff happening. So there's a lot going on the side. So if you're working, switching hands a lot, which a lot of people do that are trained up, when we talk about executive protection, military use, things like that, you will train both use of your hands. So you're switching the gun a lot. If you're doing that, you train that way, then sometimes that external controls on the side of the weapon can get in the way. That's what I was talking about when I said I really liked the Glock having very smooth, no controls to get hung up on when you are switching the gun to your left hand, right hand, left hand, right hand. It makes it a lot easier so you don't get hung up on anything. That's for center axis work, center axis relock, car. When we're working inside vehicles, real tight situation, you want to go from driver's side to passenger side, these type of things, that's how you accomplish that. So these are things that you should think about when picking a weapon, all right? When picking a firearm for your home protection or use. The other thing I want to talk about is caliber. Caliber makes a big difference. The price in caliber, whether we're shooting a Magnum, 44 Magnum, or we're shooting a 10 millimeter, which is a very fast moving round. These types of things will kind of influence your purchase. It should influence your purchase. Number one, how do you handle recoil? So are you going to go for some 10 millimeters, some of the faster moving rounds like 40 or 44? And also cost, 9mm being low in recoil and also low in cost. Very good to train with, very effective. A lot of people used to say I would never use a 9mm, because I like the knockdown of a 45. Ballistically speaking, 9mm are hitting real hard nowadays, real hard. So when we talk about ballistics and firearms, you should take that into consideration, when you're purchasing the gun. Do I want to spend a lot for the ammunition? Do I want to deal with a lot of recoil? Is the knockdown worth it? Like I said, 9mm are performing very well nowadays. You get fast moving rounds at plus P, 2,000 feet per second, delivering a lot of energy on target. So used to be maybe 45 provided that knockdown that you were looking for, and 9mm didn't quite. It was more of a penetrating round. But now with the way we've stepped up in ballistics, the 9mm gets the job done very, very effectively. 40 is still one of the hardest hitting, fastest moving bullets. It's used by law enforcement for penetration, 100% for penetration. We're talking about going through walls, windshields, doors, things like that. They want a penetrating round. So think about that. If you're using home protection, maybe you don't want a penetrating round, because if you're not well trained, I'm telling you right now, not all the bullets are going to go where you want to, and that means you could have innocent bystanders or collateral damage to deal with when they start going through walls, maybe into your neighbor's home, because that bullet is moving so many feet per second at accelerated mass once again. For this next segment, we're talking about first responders. So I brought in Austin Kiefer. He's one of our teachers, instructors here at Protection Plus Tactic. He teaches all of our medical classes, Navy corpsmen, You know, also firefighter, EMT, licensed, trained, and a bunch of stuff. This is a great kid, done a lot of things around the world. So he's going to give us his opinion on a few firearms from first responders' perspective, what they look for, and what makes a good choice for him. So Austin, I got a few guns here. I know you like to shoot and know about. So give me your opinion on the Glock and these guns as we go through this.
Yeah, of course. So we're gonna start off with the Glock. I have a Glock 17 at home. This is a Glock 22. So what I like about the Glock is it's definitely the AK of the handgun world. It's not going to break on you. It's always going to work no matter what you do to it. So
super reliable.
Super reliable. So when it comes to reliability, it's definitely a really good choice. On the other hand, also, especially if you get the 9mm variant, any 9mm variant, you can really get a lot of rounds in that magazine. At the outside of California, you can get about 17 rounds in the magazine, which gives you a lot of suppression capability. Suppression meaning keeping the enemy's head down while you're trying to do your job, right? As a corpsman in the Navy, that was most of my job. My job was not to eliminate the enemy, it was to keep the enemy's heads down while I can do my job, right? So I really liked weapons with a lot of magazine capacity, especially in my handguns, because while I'm doing something, I can transition to that handgun and do what I need to do, put it away, and do my job. All right, so Glock, excellent choice. Now we'll go to the Beretta. This thing I was issued in the Navy. I liked it. It shoots really good. However, I did have a couple of problems with it. Don mentioned it before. This exposed barrel is kind of an issue for me. I didn't really like the fact that all the weight of the slide is right in the back. So when you're trying to fire this weapon, when you shoot it, all that weight locks back on you and tends to drive the barrel up a lot more than a regular 9mm handgun. Also, that open barrel really screws with your reliability a lot. However, it does shoot really good. I qualled with it. I got expert with it over and over and over again. So it's a really good handgun when it comes to in your home. It works. And also, you got a really high magazine capacity, which I liked a lot. So that's kind of the two biggest things for me. This is reliable. This is a little less reliable. Same approximate magazine capacity. However, you can make your decision from there. Okay, this is the 1911. This is the heavy hitter, especially if you get the 45 variant. This thing is what you want if you want that stopping power, right? The stopping power of that 45 caliber round is really going to hit hard. However, you're sacrificing a lot of magazine capacity to gain that stopping power, which for me, as a corpsman in the Navy, I didn't want. All the other guys, some of those Marines would go out and get their own stuff. However, I actually preferred this just because of the magazine capacity. I was willing to sacrifice a little bit of reliability, a little less stopping power to get those extra rounds in that magazine. But other than that, that's kind of my take on these three, and these three are very different. However, the Glock is definitely tried and true. It's been here for a long time. However, if you want the stopping power, this is probably what you want to go with. So that's basically my take on it.
Yeah, and I'm just going to add one more thing to that. I'm going to go ahead and place this in your hand right here. This is your gun, right? Yeah. So, you know, one of the things about the, you know, Beretta that I always thought was a little, you know, if a guy comes out, presses out like this. Now, not everybody's going to be trained, but as a Marine, we actually would practice this. So a lot of times you throw the gun out, we come up, grunt bump like that, knocks out a battery. Now that means that he's not going to be able to shoot. When I do that right there, he's not going to be able to shoot, okay? And the next thing, when we look at this gun, this is one of the things that I really, you know, kind of had a little problem with, was the fact that once somebody grunt bumps like this, I got control of this weapon. It's his gun. He can't shoot, right? Pulling on that trigger, but I own it. Right? So there's another thing I didn't like about it as a Marine. Anybody could take my gun apart while I'm pointing it at them. It just didn't put the best feeling in my stomach. So understanding that was another reason why I didn't really...
Can't do that with either of these
You
weapons.
can't do that with any other gun but this one. You know, it's the one you see in Lethal Weapon 4, I think, and the rest of it, everybody yanking them apart. As Marines, we used to practice that. So you're not going to bump into an angry Marine in the dark alley all the time, so don't worry about that. But it is something that I do like to make note of. I really appreciate you coming in and helping us out with this and giving us your opinion on what you as a first responder are looking for in a gun. I think that, you know, we're trying to help you guys out. We're trying to teach you what we know, share knowledge and all that. I once again want to thank Terry at Rockland Armory for letting us come down and, you know, use his store and guns to film this for you guys. I highly recommend you go visit him. His guys are all knowledgeable. They know the same stuff. That's why I come in here. They're very knowledgeable. They'll help you out. They'll help you make the right choice. They'll teach you some of these mistakes that I've been talking about. So understand these things, and like I said, I hope that this has been helpful for you. Some of the other things that I like to talk about is the sights. All right, models will come with sights, plain sights. Some will come with dots. Some will drop a dot into a U. Some will come with night sights. Some will come with high vis sights. You know, I usually leave whatever's on the gun from the factory, and that's only really because I've been shooting so long, and you know I drive off that front dot no matter what it is. But in a lot of cases, there are options out there that can help you. You can swap out to night sights for home defense at night. You can swap out to high vis for training in the daytime so you get a better bead on your sights and you can maybe get a little more accurate. There are uses for these things. So find out for yourself. What I usually tell people is go shoot the gun first, get used to the gun, then start swapping the sights around. Once you've got the gun down working the way you want it to and you're on target, then you can go ahead and start thinking about maybe swapping out for different sights. I like to get people training with the firearm the way it comes from the factory so you can feel the trigger pull, because some trigger pulls are going to be around 5 pounds, some trigger pulls are going to be around 12 pounds. All right, and that makes a big difference in accuracy. So these are the things that I like to think about when I'm purchasing a gun. I like to think of, you know, how does it fit my hand? That's very important. But now, have I got enough real estate on there? Is it too small for me to really work? Or is it just the right size for me to rack it, slap, rack, tap, get the mags out, get the mags back in? I have very short thumbs, so I can't reach any thumb on any of these models. It's just the way it is. My thumb won't, this one maybe, but probably not. So I have to take into consideration that I have to be able to cant the gun, get the mag out, get another one in there and go back to work. So it's the way I've trained. And that's just due to these short thumbs. So it doesn't matter your hand size. You're gonna find a gun that's gonna work for you. And remember, in most cases, we're shooting that gun with 2 hands trying to drive it. So always think of how does it feel with both hands on there. If you have to, you will go to one hand and you will shoot. But how does it feel with 2 hands on there? So think about these things. Remember that palm travel that I talked about. It's very important when trying to choose a weapon. Make sure it doesn't wind up placing the butt of the gun right into your carpal tunnel. You want to get across that. That's palm travel that allows you to do that. Get one that you can firmly grip and wrap both hands around and hold it comfortably. Remember, if you want to get comfortable with a gun, you're going to have to get confident with it. If you want to get confident, it's going to require training. So get a gun that you're willing to train with. Remember, don't make the mistake I've seen a lot of people make with buying their first gun, the very lightest, smallest gun they can get. It becomes very difficult to manipulate, and you do feel most of the concussion. If you're a new gun owner, stick with maybe a mid-size or full-size, depending on your hand size. Try and get a gun that you can work very easily, okay? You want something you're going to go to the range and practice with. That's the most important thing that we want to do, is get out there and train, so that way when it comes time, if we do need to use the weapon, we can use it. That firearm will work for us. I hope you guys have enjoyed this. I hope that this has helped out in some ways, gives you a new way to think about buying a gun, what to look for. I'm going to be doing this with some rifles and a few other things. Look for these videos. They're all going to be up on my website. And if you have purchased a gun and maybe you made some of the mistakes that I talked about, I encourage you to watch the rest of our videos up there in our online academy. You're going to get everything from sight alignment, marksmanship, safety, malfunctions, fundamentals, shotgun, AR carbine, long distance, our medical classes, everything. We're out here to help you guys. If you have questions, please email me at don@protectionplustactics.com, and you can visit us at www.protectionplustactics.com. I hope everybody stays safe out there, and remember, come to train to live. Don Rakowski here again. I want to thank all of you for taking the courses, for going through the videos. It really makes me feel good to know that the knowledge that I have is being shared with people that will help them be safer, help them protect their families, help them be more efficient with a firearm. As a little bit more about me, I'm a 10-year combat veteran, United States Marine. I was decorated by the Secretary of the Navy. I've received presidential citations. Did some things in combat, learned a lot of things. I wrote a couple books that are available on Amazon.com. Islamic State, The Countdown's Begun, Whiskey Sierra, The Devil Dog Chronicles. You can pick those up on Amazon. Also, want to let you know that we do a lot of different courses here. We do shotgun, we do rifle, we do long distance precision rifle. We also do medical classes. We do TEMS FRO, we do TCCC. We're also certifying a lot of law enforcement, and we're working with a lot of first responders and law enforcement in the tactics and weapon training that we do. I want to make all this available for civilians, so please continue to take the courses, continue to support what we do. We appreciate you, and I hope that this knowledge I'm sharing with you is making you safer and helping you to protect the things that are important to you. Protection plus tactics. Come to train, train to live.